this actually started out with, it's just a blank page, of course. What I did, and I want to share this with you, is a healing, is a possible, something that you can do for healing, for just working through things. What I did, and I'm going to just start here. I just used a pencil, and this one is it says it's a water-based varnish. I don't think it's water soluble, but for some reason, I thought it was water soluble. But so I started to draw. I mean, you can take any pencil, like black, just a pencil, and you start to just make. You don't think, like what happened with me is I was talking to my brother, and my brother and I have a very close relationship. We talk about everything, and I started to talk to him, and I started to draw. And this is, and if I could show you the progression, what I did was I was just making this shape, and then all of a sudden it became a face, and then it became, and I have, you could see kind of the little lines that sort of started this, and then it just kind of evolved. And then as I was talking to him, I started to, once I saw that, oh, it's a face, and then I started to just fill in and work and detail it a little more. And then I used watercolors, but I tried to stay monochromatic because I knew that's what we were going to do this week. And I kind of, it was just not, I wasn't thinking, but what happened is, as a result, for me, at least I felt, is that this was a portrait of myself when I was younger, kind of, it's a stylized one, I guess. And then there's this healing that's going on. And I kind of felt, because I felt a lot of frustration when I was talking to my brother and just about world events and things and just being isolated. And then I thought, okay, what am I doing? What's happening here? I've got to be more compassionate and loving toward myself, and others will fall. So, I mean, others, and I can feel more compassionate and loving towards situations I don't understand. And that's kind of where I'm kind of wanted to just, so today, what's happening here, especially for Cindy and her daughter and for the world, what we should do is, as we're working in our journals, we don't need to be, I'm just going to start doing what I did before. What I did was I just talked, and now I'm talking now, and I made a scribbly kind of thing. And then I noticed, and you can have something in mind, is if you have a picture in mind or an image in mind, faces are really good to do. And maybe like for a mother, our children are really, I think we're all moms here. Our children there's something about a child, and this is almost becoming a child here, and a mother and a child. Oh boy, here it comes. So I've got this mother and child kind of thing happening here. And if you could see, I'm just scribbling, and you can do this and just use your pencil and just let it kind of go where you think where it's going to go. And then when you start seeing a figure or something that kind of really starts to work, and I'm seeing a mother, so now I can kind of draw into this like a mother, her face. And she may not, who knows what she's going to look like, but she's going to be compassionate, and she's going to be loving, and she's going to have a little smile, because I think she's going to hold a baby. And this could be a grandmother holding a baby too. I'm not looking at this, could be a grandma holding a baby. And that's kind of where I'm coming, but I kind of miss holding my grandchildren, who are no longer babies. They're actually, the youngest is 5 and the oldest is 22. So one of them is driving already. But just having that, just holding, here we go, hands holding the baby. And this could be just for yourself too, giving yourself that extra mother love that we are mothers. We can give ourselves that love as well. Here, I'm going to put the hands here. So you just sketch, if you sketch a mom holding a baby in any way, this one I would have loved to have a bigger piece of paper, because I'd like to have her sitting in a, like in a crossed leg position, or sitting in a rocking chair. So this is kind of how I did this. And then after I just changed over to different pencils, just to give, density, just a change in color. I mean, just basically black and white. So you're not really thinking about colors. You're thinking about just black and white. Let's see if I'm going to try another pencil here. And you could graduate onto markers and pen, like after you do your loose drawing, I'm just going to go back to this one. When you've done your loose drawing, then you could go back and you can take a marker and just finalize the lines. And the loose squigglies kind of are a nice guide, but that doesn't have to stay there. Then you can also use an eraser later if you want to erase the squigglies. But I kind of like to keep the squigglies because it's sort of the foundation of what I'm working with. And so then you can start shadowing. And if you've taken any classes from Jennifer Funnel, you'd know, I mean, she's this great drawing. She's a great teacher. And so maybe using some of those skills you've used in her class, you can start to form like an image of whatever you want. I mean, this one happens to be a mom and a baby. And I'm thinking of something positive is going to happen. There's always, like with hard things that happen, difficulties, there's always opportunity for change and for growth. We always have that. And like for what I'll do is I'll tend to feel sad and sorry about stuff. And then I'll have, okay, so what is this opportunity? What am I going to learn from this? Here's a little baby head here. Or it could be ourselves. We're nurturing ourselves. Actually, I have a painting that someone did of me when I was pregnant. It's actually not a painting, it's a print. And I was about ready to give birth to my third child. And she had draped a sheet over me and photographed me in my pregnancy shape. I'm going to grab an eraser real quick so I can show you this technique is really quite fun. There we go. I'll get this eraser. So now that I see something forming, I'm going to just start erasing areas, but not erasing all the squiggles because I want to keep those squiggles. And I noticed this really big shoulder that I made. So I'm just going to kind of reduce that down. And then I can just create like shapes and drawings around it. And this, I like the idea of putting a halo of energy around something because it could be a nice positive thing here. So I've got this baby shape going on here. It could be, it looks like an adult actually. And then with the hands, I've got a very rough hands, and hands are not easy to make, but if you're using a pencil, you can kind of do the outline or the shape and then you can always kind of work with it until it looks like a hand. And if you don't even it doesn't have to look like a hand, like here's 3 fingers. So we've I'll keep working with that, but I wanted to just show you that you can sculpt with your pencil and then erase and reduce. And just and don't worry about the outcome. Just think of just think of the things that, that the holding a baby will bring. What does it do? It's a loving thing. I'd like to be a grandma for hire someday. Get a rocking chair for me and I'm good to go. So this is kind of where I've got this thing going, and then I'll just keep working on it. But I wanted to move on to another thing, show you some different things. So that's kind of a page that I'll evolve into. Something will happen with this, kind of like how this one happened. But this took about 45 minutes to complete, maybe an hour. So I don't want to take the whole time today to do that because I have some really fun things to show you. But here we go. I'll go for the next. Let's see, I've been playing with gesso and black and white. Well, and if you remember, this was a page that I had started on earlier in our journaling thing, and it had some papers, collage stuff over it and stuff. So what I had done, and I don't know if you can see this, probably not. There's some texture going on here, and I'll do it on this page here. I'll kind of show you what I had done. I'm going to start. I'm going to just protect the pages here. I'm going to scooch this over a little bit closer. There's a few things where I'm going to do, and I'm going to just show you, if you were able to see the video that I put up on the other day on our homepage, which I think soon the home page will just be integrated into the crafting page. I'm just going to move this out of the way. It gets messy and it's fun. So I've got gesso, black gesso. I've got white gesso. I have black. I've only got black and white today. So I've got black and white paints. I've got black ink, just plain black ink. If you have sumi ink, just black and white, keeping it simple. Black and white pencils, no color, none at all. And if you have a page that's maybe you think is just too busy or too colorful, this would be a good time you can just simplify it by using the black and the white. So what I'm going to do is start with some black gesso, or you could use black paint. If you don't have, like you mentioned, Cheryl, you couldn't find your black gesso. If you have some black craft paint and white craft paint, you can do the same thing that I'm going to be doing now. So what I'm going to do, and I've got to be careful not to get on my other on this painting because I really like this and I don't want to get it messed up. It's terrible to be attached to something because then you can mess it up. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to dip my brush into the black gesso and I'm going to work fast. So I'm just going to go and work from the center out so that I don't get my page underneath messed up. I just gotta go fast, and I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm just doing about a half of this page, just half. And there we go. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take the white gesso and I'm going to dip it. Now it's not. I don't really want to contaminate my gesso, so I'm going to pour it onto onto the palette. Really don't want to contaminate it. I'll put this over here and see my page is really curling right now, but that's okay. It will straighten out later. So now while it's still wet, I'm just going to go in and blend and do a blend. So it's going to be kind of a grayish, a gray color. And I probably should have done this a little quicker. See, if it's still wet, you can blend. There we go. I'm able to just kind of scrub it. Just blending it. And I'm just going to go lighter and lighter as I go towards to the right of the page. Now this I can see just isn't blending as much as I want, but that's okay. I'll just keep softening it. There we go. Just, oops, get out there. And I have a little apron on. I have an apron on because it can get messy. I've got this, I'll just keep blending and then I'm just going to dab off some extra of that black and I'm trying to graduate up to white at some point to this side, to the right side. So I'm just going to start with a soft blend and I can do this by kind of dry brushing. There we go. Now I've got it that way. I'll just keep, and the gesso is really strong, of course. It's very pigmented, so I could always go back over with the black to soften, which I probably will do. I'm just going to continue into this next page, and if you have your wire journal, just continue to the next page, to the next side. And I've got this kind of gray, sort of medium toned gray, and I want to get rid of some of that, and then just start bringing in the white, and just kind of just blend it over. Maybe just pull it into this page a little bit. And then just keep adding the white. And if I need to, I don't want to dip it in water because it would be really messy right now. But I could take my brush and just kind of wipe off more of that black with this is a shop towel, and these are really handy. So now that I've gotten, there we go. You could use a brayer if you want, but the bristle brushes or a soft brush is good for blending. So basically, I'm just getting this black and white fade going on. And you can make it as loose or as soft as you want, or brush. You can make it brushy, it's up to you. But a soft blend that goes from left to right. Just let that. And the more, oops, there we go. I've got a mess now. Big mess. And this is just makes for really dramatic. You know, black and white is such, our eyes read black and white much, you know, our brains kind of process the black and white as kind of more flat. So you can get really good, you can actually get really more mindful of your compositions, because that's why we start out in art school. We start out black and white, you know, monochromatic, because it just helps you to just get a better idea of what you're doing compositionally. So I'm just kind of just gonna get this to where it's the blend that I like. And I'm just doing it, keeping that brush nice and dry, I'm trying not to make it wet, so it's just nice. I can move it around while the paint's still damp. I think that's pretty, I think I wanted to add more black, but maybe I'll leave it like that. I'll leave it. I might just take a little more white in this corner because I have black up here, and just kind of brighten that up a little bit down in this lower right corner. And then that will be the base for I'll probably do a drawing on this side, and I'll use this here to maybe use some white pens. But this is kind of a nice way just to kind of make a blend and a basis for some artwork. Now, a trick is when you have a brush loaded with a lot of paint, it's best to just wipe it off as much as you can in a rag before you get it in the water, for many reasons. I mean, the acrylic paints are not good for septic systems. I tried, if I'm doing a lot of painting, I actually will wash my paints outside, wash my colors and let it drain into the dirt. But I always try to wipe off as much as I can and get it out of, not put it in the water system. So I see that we're good here and here. So I'm going to set this aside. Actually, I need to dry it, because I have a page that I'm working on that's in this journal, so I need to do it. So I've got this little cool little, if you haven't tried these, this is by Ranger. These are so quiet, you could probably barely hear it, but they're really nice to just dry areas quickly if you want to get it done. I love this. I just got this. I had one before. It was white and it was covered in paint, and it was such a mess, and it finally gave up because I'd had it for a long time. But these are handy because they don't blow a lot of air, but it's very warm, and it's hot. I mean, you don't want to use this as a hair dryer. Absolutely not. It will fry your hair. But it made it so that I'm able to touch the paint right away. It's dry. It's dry enough to the touch now, so I can work on the other page. So now I'm going to just turn this to the next thing I wanted to show you. So this is, I'm just going to put that in between just in case it's not dry and completely dry. Now this one earlier, I did this earlier where I had taken a stencil, and I don't know if I've shown you before, but I took a stencil, actually these two stencils here. This one and not this one. This one and this leaf stencil. And what I did is I laid it down onto the corner, and I scraped a little what's it called? Hard molding paste, or any thick gel would work. So I'm going to do it. I think I can do it on this side, which is kind of nice. This is already dry enough, so I'll just go ahead, and I'm going to do a little bit right on this page that I just did, because it's dry enough. I'm just going to put a little gel medium, and this stuff will dry clear. I just want to show you. You can create texture. I knew I was going to make a mess today. So this is just hard molding paste. You can use any kind of gel medium, but it's kind of thick, and it dries sort of to a dull. It's not really shiny, which I really like. So I'm just going to lay this stencil down and just scrape a little bit. And I wish it was going to dry white, but it's not. I like that. It's going to dry clear. But at least when you see it going on, you know that it's going on. You know it's going on. You can see what you've got. I'm just going to do a little corner here. And I don't want to make it really thick because if I do that, then the page is just too thick. So I'm just going to lift it up, and I've got a little texture. Oops, and I really made some texture, didn't I? And then I'm going to do the same up on this corner right up here. Just take a little bit, maybe do it at this in this direction like that. And I'll just put a little bit of that same stuff in the corner. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's definitely messy, but that gives the much more interest and texture when I do what I'm going to do next. And I'll show you on a different page what I will do on this. Since this takes about, I'd say about 45 minutes to dry completely, depending on where you live. So I'm just going to let that pull that up, and I've got a nice little texture in that corner. So I've got this nice little composition going. And what I'm doing is putting my stencil in a bath of water. Otherwise, if I don't do that, the stencil, that medium will just dry on the stencil, and it'd be a mess. It'd be difficult to get out. And I just wipe my palette knife off. I don't even need to wash it. Okay, so that I'm going to let that sit. But what I have to do again is I have to dry it, because I did at least dry it to the touch, because I'm going to use this same journal for the other things I wanted to show you. So what's nice is this, I can tell when this is dry enough, it actually will start to become, this one actually is a white opaque, which is nice. I thought it was going to be dry white, but it doesn't look like it, or dry clear, but it looks like it dries white, which I like, because I wanted that to happen. I wanted highlights. And this side, I'm just going to do it enough so that it's dry to the touch, so I can go to the next demo. So this is what I would do first. Make a base layer. This is gesso, so I can paint over this now because it's a ground to paint over. And then this is the gel medium, which will act as a resist to anything I'm doing, any painting. I think that is going to be dry enough to the touch so that I can close the page. Okay. Now I'm just going to, and it's very wet. Everything's pretty wet, so I'm just going to take my wax paper and just gently, I don't want to close it really hard. Okay, so here, I'll just do it here. I did the same thing here where I simplified. I painted this in white gesso, and I don't know, I had a hand print on it, and I thought the hand print was just a little too much. It's still there, which I like. It's a hint of it instead of screaming out at me. So I'm just going to take this, and I've got lots of messes. Fold this over. Let that stay. So now what I wanted to show you is how this paste, this molding paste, makes a resist. And if you want to use ink or black paint thinned out, I think I'll just do black thinned out paint just to make it keep it simple. I'll take some. I could even use gesso and thin it out if I wanted, but I'm just going to use a little bit of black paint. You could also use watercolors, anything that you know is going to stay in there. And I've got a little, I'm going to take a brush, I'm going to thin out this paint and make a wash out of it. You could add other colors too, like just a tint of color if you want it. Just doesn't have to be black and white if you don't want it to be. I'm just putting a little bit of, I'm just putting it inside this area right here. And then I want it to drip because I think that would look dramatic. So what I'll do is I'll keep puddling lots of color paint in that and lots of water. So don't want it perfect. And I might just spatter a little bit too. Let's just see. Just spatter it. Yeah, there we go. And now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pick up my journal and I'm going to have a little catch-all here. I got to have something to hold it. I'm just going to pick it up and let it drip. Come on, drip, drip. There it goes. And it's soaking. If you could see, it's soaking into the rag instead of on my table. And I want more. So sometimes you have to blow on it or add more water, like what I could do right now. I'll just add a little more water to it because I don't want it too much more color. I just want more dripping. And then I'll just drip it. Come on, drip. There we go. A little more dripping. Come on. Sometimes you have to just push it a little bit. Probably add a little bit more. There we go. That's what I wanted. Drips. Serious dripping. And then just at the bottom, just kind of hold the bottom. You can see I'm just going to move that along. I want that down, all the way down. There we are. That's exactly what I wanted. 3 drips. And just soak it up with the rag just to get all that extra off. And now I have, and I could keep working this and keep adding maybe some more spatters, maybe some gray spatters. And what my plan is on this one is to do some writing up at the top. So I wanted to kind of have a focal point right in the center with this heart, and then now I can take that and rag and rub off. That's what I love about the molding paste. I can lift the color off of it. So that to me, that's going to be fun with, and I can also dab off. This is where I want to paint when I would do some writing. So I'm just going to lift that off so I have my space for writing right there. So that looks like I've kind of added some drama. And what's nice about this, when you do this, when you have, like I had so many colors, like here, this is just so many colors I have on this page on the right. And I'll probably soften that also with maybe some black or more white. Maybe the blue is just not working for that. I can always just add a little bit of white. And really, the black and white will make it just better. Sometimes it just does. It just works out better when you have a little bit. You just simplify things. I'm just taking some of that. Grab another one of these pages. And same with this. I'm going to just put a little of this white that I don't want to waste any of my paint. So I'm just going to take, and that's a little bit, has a little water in it. I have to get that out. And just, I'm going to put that right around the sides of that. And I like the message. This was one of our prompts from a few weeks back. Can you believe it's 12? This has been we've been doing this 3 months. Should have a complete journal, but I keep hopping back from one to the other. So they're not complete, but I'm getting a lot farther than I ever have. I'm just going to simplify and move that. I like having the pages sort of work together. They don't have to, the whole journal doesn't have to be of the same theme, but it's nice to have pages or spreads that work. And I'm taking the line out. I had a line in there that I just thought was making it too busy. The same thing here. I'm just going to cover that up. And it's still readable underneath, but just doesn't have to be as prominent. And now I think that page is it's already working a little bit better. Now I'm going to kind of unify it. I can still take some of this and spatter that on this side just to kind of make it unified. Maybe a light gray. But what's great about just one color is you can start working with values, different levels of light and dark, and you're not thinking, oh, what color am I going to use? If you don't really have a lot of choices, you can only work in white and variations of gray and light colors. So it's kind of freeing, actually. I'm just going to let that sit and marinate. And I had one more I wanted to show you. One more little. I've got to let that dry. One more. This technique I wanted to share with you, so you can kind of do your own thing. But what's happening here is nice. This is kind of drying, kind of watercolor-like, because I thinned it out. And what's great about acrylic paints is you can do watercolor effects with them. And this was an acrylic paint, but it looks very much like a watercolor. the great thing is it won't, once I re-wet it, if I were to re-wet it, it's not going to lift. So that's the beauty of using acrylic paints as your watercolors. You can make glazes and layers. I'm just going to get that dry enough to the touch. Okay, good. Now I can just turn the page. So the last one, the last technique I wanted to share with you. Not last but not least, right? Okay, now this one was, I wanted to, actually this is not the last technique. I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got this little thing going here, and now I'm going to just open this up. And the same thing, I wanted to show you, I don't know if you remember what was in here. This was a really busy collage. I think I can move this here now. And I'll take some of this paint that I don't want to waste and use my watercolor brush, kind of use it as a watercolor. Thinned out. You can see, just so you can see more how this works as a resist, these gel mediums or the modeling paste. So I'm just going to paint a little bit, basically paint all over the whole thing, but not in the center. I have like an idea to put some thoughts and words in the center. It's basically changing the whole painting or the whole journal page. It's totally different than it was before. So now what's great is now I can take this and rub it. And I get this really beautiful distressed thing going on because this gel medium, ooh, I like it. I'll just do the whole thing. Except for the butterfly and the flowers. I want to keep those in kind of, I want to keep those sharp. So I'm just not going to cover those up. And this, I basically started this with gesso. So the gesso is going to absorb this acrylic paint really nicely. And I see there's some other areas where it's not, it's absorbing less than others. And I can see here where it just soaked right in, which is really neat. Kind of a different, getting an effect I didn't expect. And then I probably, ooh, I like this, having fun. And what I could do is afterwards, let's say I want to just create some lines or want to doodle or something with the white pen. After this dries, I can do that. Oh, this is fun. It's like finger painting for adults, but I'm really not using my fingers. I could take just basically using this towel to just rub off some of the paints, makes it really interesting. And I'm still keeping some of that color from this butterfly. And wherever the gesso didn't soak in, or wherever I didn't paint with gesso, there's these dark colors, which I really like. So if you take your gesso and just put it on parts of your journal page and let it just kind of random, and then when you paint over it, you will have a different absorbent. This is definitely where the gesso was not there, not there. And it just does a really different, sort of unexpected look. I'm just going to get all this part of that flower covered up. And then I can rub more and just do it as I use my paper towel. And if you have shop rags, they're really handy because they are much more durable than a regular paper towel. So you're not wasting as much. You can use it as a painting tool, actually. You can dab. I'm just doing it until I get the effect that I want. So I've got this little butterfly is actually starting to stand out, and I'm being really loosey-goosey here, but I can tighten it up with pens and little drawing techniques. Yeah, all right. So I think that's about all I'm going to do on that for a while. And then I'll come back to it and we'll play with it. So that's that. I just wanted to show you how it changed that whole look of the page. Total different than it was. And now I can just do some with white pens, like if I take, or white gouache, got some gouache here. This is an acrylic gouache. I've also got pens, and you could take all these opaque acrylic. This one's new. I have to get one that's already used. There you go. If you use the acrylic pen, like this would be fun to just draw a little butterfly tentacles or whatever they're called. And then I could just start to create highlights, and I could start to write. I can draw lines if I want. Well, and this looks like a tree now. I'm seeing kind of a tree happening here. So I'm just going to start, I'm going to finish the tree. Of course, it's not good to draw into wet paint. I'm now having, this thing's clogging. But because it's wet, it's not a good idea. But this is like looking like a tree to me. So I'm going to just bring out that, and I'll bring that out later. It's still too wet. And I see a bird kind of shape kind of happening here, so I'll probably bring that out. There we go. I'll start working on it. So there's lots of things you can do when you start creating textures and depths. So that's that page. And then the very last technique, I had one more I wanted to share with you. I could actually do it here. Let's see, do I have another space? Or I could do it on here. I think I'll do it on this one, I'll do it on this one. So what's kind of neat is if you want a really hard edge. So if I'm going to just take this and I'm just going to tear it. I want a nice hard edge. But I want it to be, just trying to think of where I want to put it though. All right, I'm going to do it here. I'll do this on both sides. So I'm just going to tear that. What I'm using is my paper as a mask. I could kind of see a mountain shape here. And I'm going to grab some black paint, not the gesso, but the paint. A little bit more of it. You can also use tapes and other things too, but it just makes a nice, this gives me a really interesting edge. And I'm just using my stencil brush. But you just use a regular bristle brush is fine. Mine are all wet, so I can't use it. I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to use that as basically a stencil. And what's neat about it, it's the torn edge you'll see when I lift up. What's interesting is when I lift it up, it looks more like the paper is, it looks to me like paper. So I haven't glued any paper down, but it gives that collage look of paper. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but with white. If I can use a white, I need a white. Something I can use with get white on. I don't have an extra brush. Oh, here we are. I got one with white on it. Yay. Just going to dry it off. Now this time I'll just put some gesso because gesso's opaque. And this is dry enough for me to just do it. And so I'll just take the same shape and I'm going to just brush it. And I should have something underneath. Let me just put this underneath. Here, like that. Same thing, just going to brush it, going from the paper and moving outward to give myself a nice hard edge. But not so hard. It's not like a taped edge. It's got a really interesting torn look. And then if I want, I can kind of scrub it around to kind of give it a variation of, because I can see it's not totally opaque. I'm just going to lift it, and I've got that same torn edge. So I've got this interesting thing going on with the black and white, and it was just with different techniques. And then also I could take this once it's dry and add, do that same thing that I had done in the previous page where I put it in and kind of rub it off a little bit to give it a little distress. But this will be a fun layout for whatever prompts that we have this week.